Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 259 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, joined by my co-host, Adnan Ikic, at Say Which Way. Adnan, how are we doing on this evening, aside from the obvious? Or you can talk about the obvious if you want to, but this is a safe space. We can retreat. Somehow we can retreat to the solace of the Falcons in these dark times.
God, who would have thought we'd be saying that right now? Shit. The solace of the Falcons? Since when have the Falcons ever been a solace?
We got this 1 week. That might be it, but we got to enjoy it. We got to enjoy it right now. Yeah.
This is absolutely the darkest timeline if we're retreating into the solace of the Falcons. Yeah, no, I've been better, Kevin. Yeah. The Braves are absolutely getting wrecked right now. It's 10-2 in Philadelphia, and I mean, I went to game 2 the other night, and that was electric. You know,
yeah,
a 4-run comeback, a 5-4 win, and it's like we have all this momentum, and it just all gets completely wrecked. If they don't figure this shit out tomorrow, then we really will be retreating into the Falcons, because it's still a few more weeks until the Hawks start.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bad time right now. So I hope the Braves get their shit together tomorrow.
Well, if anyone can do it, I feel like they can. I mean, they're pretty damn good. But yeah, sometimes it doesn't go your way. We're very familiar. I'm very familiar with this with the Falcons, as I'm sure all of you viewers are. Welcome in, folks. Also joining us tonight from Twitter exile, he is Aaron Freeman, at FalcFans, temporarily at Locked On Falcons. Aaron, thank you for breaking your silence to come here onto this show.
I appreciate you having me. We're talking about safe spaces. This is one for me. I'm just glad to be talking Falcons football. I don't really have much else to say.
I imagine there's a lot of takes are bottled up now that you just really have to get out. So, in case you didn't get enough of them out on your daily podcast covering the Atlanta Falcons, Locked On Falcons. Professional plug there by me, but yes,
appreciate it.
Yes, okay, we got that out of the way. Now, before we dive in, obviously we're gonna get an update from Aaron on sort of, since the last time we talked to him, the extreme highs and extreme lows of Desmond Ritter in this Falcons offense. We're gonna, of course, dive into the Van Jefferson trade, because that is actually a little bit interesting, and then we'll talk about the possibility of this team maybe ending up on top of the NFC South this weekend if they happen to get a big dub. So we'll see. It could be tied. If the Bucs were to lose and the Falcons were to win, they would be ahead of the Bucs technically, and then it depends on what the Saints do. But they could at least be tied for first place again, so that could be cool. But before we get too far, want to read you guys a quick word from our sponsor, BetOnline.ag, folks. Football is back, and BetOnline is your number one information source for all your sports wagering info, with all the up-to-the-minute stats, news, scores, and matchup breakdowns that you need. You can get the latest game odds, spreads, and totals from the NFL and college football at your fingertips with BetOnline's real-time updates on statistics, news, and odds. From Week 1 all the way to the college football playoff and Super Bowl, BetOnline gives you access to the best football promotions and contests available anywhere online. Now, Falcons going up against the Commanders this week, which not expected, but somehow maybe the worst defense they played all year, which I would not have guessed that before the season. But Falcons, I believe, are 2.5-point favorites in this one. So, hey, it's a little bit interesting there. I think there's a decent chance they win by more than that this week if all goes well, or it could go horribly. So if you bet on the Falcons, you're obviously taking your life into your own hands. But no matter what you want to bet on, guys, head to the website today, betonline.ag, or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Just remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, Aaron, I want to give you the floor first, just because we haven't heard your take in a while. You've conveniently missed, Week 3's let down, Week 4's ultimate depression, and then Week 5's just somehow complete elation on the part of Desmond Ritter, who at this stage has had maybe the most crazy three game stretch in terms of up and downs that I've witnessed from a Falcons quarterback in a long time. Just curious, where you're at on Ritter at this point. I know you were with me that we were kind of both encouraged, but very much wait and see. And then it was a little sketchy there, maybe a little bit of flash of hope. What are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm pretty in a good spot with Ritter. I was, my thing is always, I think people get way too high off of the wins and way too low off the losses. And I felt like after week 2 in Ritter's fourth quarter, like everybody was like, well, he's the guy. He's now going to be the franchise quarterback for like the next decade or whatever. And it was like, we'll see. And then like after week 4, he was like, well, we got to go out there and trade for Kirk Cousins. We got to tank for Drake May or whatever. And it's like, well, we'll see. Like, so like I feel like Ritter is played on Sunday against Houston like I thought he would, right? So like that was the player that I thought we were going to get this year. It took 4 weeks before we got that player. And now the question is, are we going to get that player consistently for the next 12 weeks? Or is it going to be, sort of the ups and down roller coaster that kind of the first month of the season is? But, I'm glad that Ritter had that sort of rebound game after, what was probably the lowest point for him. And that's something that you want to see. And time will tell if we look back at that and say that was the turning point for Desmond Ritter, or we look back at that and look at it kind of like we looked at the 49ers game for Marcus Mariota last year, which was like, yeah, that was a really good game for him, but that was about it for him. So to me, it's always been a game of patience with Desmond Ritter, but I know like very few people have patience when it comes to these types of things. And it's sort of whatever you're feeling now in the moment is how you're going to feel forever. And it's like, that's not really how it works, but I get why we go through the pendulum swings and the roller coasters and all that stuff. So I'm at a good place with Ritter. We'll see how long I stay in this good place if we're back to complaining about it again in a couple of days or a couple of weeks. But, I feel like he's on track to where I thought he would be around this point in the season.
Yeah, I think that's fair, that it's very inconsistent. I think that was the most likely outcome, was inconsistency, at least early on. And that's definitely what we've gotten. I think when you say inconsistency, people think that means average. That's not what inconsistent means. In fact, average would probably be very consistent, just consistently average. Whereas with Ritter, we've gotten some really nice flashes. Like you mentioned the week 2 of the Packers game, that fourth quarter, nice, like great job. Then you get this game against Houston, which is nice because it's actually the whole game, and he does have that one turnover worthy play, I think, to Kyle Pitts that gets dropped, but on the whole, much cleaner, much better decision making, and just played a very good game. And then you've got, of course, the catastrophic week 4 and the pretty bad week 3. So it's just, that's a lot of times that can be what inconsistency looks like, whereas it's really bad sometimes and it actually maybe can be really good sometimes. But I think the difference is before week 5, we had only seen really bad and hadn't ever really seen really good. So now that I think there is that really good game to point to, like, well, you've shown this, I hope that will temper things a little bit, but I know ultimately it will not. And speaking of tempering, Adnan, the noted Desmond Ritter hater, he's moved on from Matt Ryan to Desmond Ritter in his quest to hate every Falcons franchise quarterback, or just regular quarterback even. Adnan, I think you were coming to terms with the fact that Ritter did actually play a good game on Sunday, and it was a little tough at first, but I think you're coming around a little bit.
You're really pushing a narrative right now, Mike.
Hashtag what? Come on, I don't push narratives. This is, we don't do that here. There's no narratives.
God, what a narrative.
There's no bits. Right, there's no bits. There's no narratives. This is all 100% true.
No, I'm Desmond Ritter. So I'm very on record when it comes to Desmond Ritter. What I have on record is, I don't know, like in the very, very long term, I have always said that I don't think that Ritter is the franchise quarterback of this team, and I would like for the team to seek that out in the coming off season and off seasons. But we're not there yet. We're not talking about this off season. We'll get to that eventually. We'll get to that conversation. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For right now, Desmond Ritter did have a very good game, the best game of his career on Sunday. I don't think that's a very hot take to say that this game against the Houston Texans, where Desmond Ritter accounted for 2 touchdowns, where he had 329 passing yards, where he had 0 turnover-worthy plays, according to PFF, that this was the best game that he has played in his professional NFL career, 8 games in so far. He was great. He was spectacular. I'm very happy that he played that game, and I really hope that he continues, because if he continues, then this team will be successful. I don't know if you have the ceiling that you need with Desmond Ritter to advance past, I think, the divisional round, the divisional round of the playoffs. I think that right now for this team is the absolute ceiling, and it all depends on the matchup, because I don't think that this team is good enough to really compete with the 49ers, who look really fucking good right now. And I don't think this team is good enough to compete with the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think that that's a very big hot take either right now. But if Desmond Ritter continues playing like this, he's going to stave off the talks of possibly yanking him, possibly going the Taylor Heineke route, which was a conversation that we were legitimately having before this past week, because it's a conversation that I think we needed to have before this week, because you can't get away with playing that poorly 4 weeks into the season. I think Ritter had 2 good quarters total in those first 4 weeks. You can't get away with playing that poorly without that conversation being had. Now, full credit to him. He bounced back very well. And, I mean, I'm going to give praise when praise is due. I'm not like some folks. I know there's some folks who are out there who are preying on Desmond Ritter's downfall. And I don't understand that. If you're a Falcons fan who's just hoping that Desmond Ritter plays poorly so that you're right. Because, if you're right, then all you get is misery out of it. And if you're wrong, then you're making yourself miserable. So I don't know. I don't understand that at all. My Desmond Ritter takes come from what I've seen, just from what my opinion is. And I hope that my opinion is wrong. And I hope that Desmond Ritter ends up being, the franchise savior that some people think that he is. I don't know if that's going to turn out that way. But right now, all we can do is focus on sort of the micro of this season. And the micro right now is Desmond Ritter had his best game of his career last week. He has a chance to stack that. He has a chance against a really sort of porous defense, porous being this past week. They gave up 40 points to a Justin Fields-led Bears offense, which was absolutely on the ropes. And I mean, I know I started the Commanders in fantasy in my fantasy league, and they got me negative points in my fantasy league. So I saw firsthand just how putrid they are from a position of rooting for them. And I mean, this is a golden opportunity. You get a Commanders team at home. Ritter still hasn't lost at home yet. That team is reeling. I like Sam Howell so far this season. Sam Howell looks pretty good, but this is your chance to stack it up. This is your chance to go 4-2 before a couple of more challenging road tests against a couple of pretty good defenses in the Buccaneers and Titans. But that's another one where we'll get to. But yeah, Desmond Ritter deserves his props. He definitely deserves his praise for this past week, and I genuinely hope that he keeps it up.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think you're absolutely right that I mean, there's just always going to be some miserable people out there that I don't really understand it, but maybe they're just trying to put takes out and see if their takes hit. And I guess that can be fun too if like you're just there for the discourse or something, but I don't know, it seems kind of miserable to me. But, whatever. It's ultimately up to Ritter to just win games. Like if he can play well enough that the team is winning and they're not held back by him, he's going to keep his job. And through weeks 3 and 4, that was why we were having that conversation, right? Because it looked like week 3, I think you could blame the offensive line just as much. Week 4 was definitely a lot on Ritter, but this last week it was funny because it was like Ritter paid everyone back. He was like, "Oh, you're gonna fumble twice, and you're gonna have some boneheaded penalties, knock us out of field goal range, and we're gonna have all these issues, and I'm just gonna help you overcome." So I think he owed the offense back a little bit, the rest of the offense for week 4, and he absolutely paid them back with a great game. And now it's about having that happen again. And we just, at this point, we don't really know how often we're going to see that. But, I mean, what do you think, Aaron? At this point, do you think more likely to see that version of Ritter or week 4 version of Ritter, or are you going to be a coward and go right in the middle?
I'm probably going to be a coward.
Oh, okay.
I think I feel like the week 5 Ritter, because I believe in Ritter probably more than no, I won't even say your average Falcon fan. I maybe your average Falcons podcaster. Let's go with that, right? And I'm basing that entirely off of the three of us in this room. I feel like he should play like this because I thought this was going to be the player that we would get this year, and that's why I was optimistic and confident. Hey, this team is going to be a playoff team. Ritter doesn't have to be great. Like, it wasn't like he wasn't amazing or anything, but he made the throws that he needed to make in order to put this team in a position to win. But it wasn't as if like, he wasn't Patrick Mahomes or anything is basically what I'm saying. Right. But like, so I feel like more of these games are in him. And I feel like the situation is there that if the offensive line can do their job and, hopefully we'll be talking more about, the potential upgrades that they've made at the wide receiver core, and those guys can, do their jobs. And if Kyle Pitts can look like what he did on Sunday, and be, a featured part of the offense on a semi-regular basis, then I see no reason to think that Ritter will stop playing like this. But ultimately, if it boils down to Ritter can only show these types of skills at home and then just lays, stinkers on the road, like, that's going to be a conversation in and of itself. But I feel like Ritter is capable of this, every week. So I don't know. I'm dancing around answering your question. So yes, maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see.
You're taking a more positive tack. Yeah. You're just going a little bit more on you think that he actually can be functional and not. Week 4 was like worst QB in the NFL. Week 5 was like, he might be a top 10 quarterback. I don't think you're saying he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, but you're saying, probably functional Ritter is what we're going to get on a week-to-week basis, not like he's going to tank your offense into the dirt, Ritter.
Yeah. Like, I feel like, I went into the season expecting the Falcons to play a bunch of close games. Every game is going to be within like a score going into the fourth quarter. And it was just a matter of whether or not, the team, the defense, the running game, the quarterback make the plays to win the game. And so like after the week 3 game, that's why I wasn't as panicky as other people were after that, because it was like they had the chance to make the throws. Ritter didn't make the throws that they needed to make on that 3rd and 4th down to Drake London. He missed those throws. Like, that's bad, but like next week he could easily make the throws. And then of course we got the week that we got in London. And so it was like, like, but then like this week he was right back to making the throws. And so I think there are going to be games like the Detroit game where it's close and he misses the throws. And, that week on Twitter is going to be a terrible week, but I think there's also going to be hopefully more games where he does make the throws, which is what we've kind of seen so far if you want to look at the 3 games that we've won and the 2 games that we lost. So I think it will balance out in the end to being more favorable, but it's probably going to be a little bit of a roller coaster as we get there. And I just think people need to embrace the highs, the lows, and just learn to enjoy the ride, even if it's going to seem terrible. And the safety rating on this roller coaster, as Dave Choate would say, is terrible. You're just you just got to figure out a way to try to enjoy this ride, and hopefully it'll end up in the place that you want it to be.
Yeah, it's like the Simpsons meme, I'm in danger, like that's where we are with Ritter at quarterback right now. But, sometimes, the danger doesn't materialize. It's ever present, of course, but it's just out the window, and maybe it doesn't get in. So we'll just hope for more good than bad from Ritter. And I think at least what he showed in week 5 was that that type of game is within his range of outcomes. And I think coming off the previous week, you would have thought that he had no chance to ever have a good game in the NFL, which of course was ridiculous, but that's just where people were, ready to jump off a cliff. So this brings it back to earth a little bit. So I'm glad he rebounded as strongly as it did, because now you can really see the whiplash of the takes just so quickly. I'm guilty of this as well. We were talking about benching him last week, So hey, things change quick in the NFL, not for long, right? Let's get into the Van Jefferson trade, though, because I know that's legitimately interesting to a lot of people. And I mean, I guess I find it a little bit interesting. It definitely wasn't on my radar, Van Jefferson in particular. this was not the Danielle Hunter news I was looking for, but there's still time. We got a ways to go. The Danielle Hunter watch continues. So far, I think I'm like 0 for 2 on my watches this year, but you got to win eventually, right? But what you did say you were a Van Jefferson fan, Aaron. I remember like being kind of a fan of him, but also kind of being like, I don't think the Falcons are going to draft him, and they obviously didn't. But what do you think about this addition? Do you think this has a chance to actually be a contributor, or is this more of a depth sort of move?
I mean, it's probably a depth sort of move, but I at the same again, I'm doing the maybe thing. But
gotta hedge.
I remember talking about Van Jefferson as a potential trade possibility in the offseason, where when the Falcons signed Mac Hollins, it was like, I don't think the Falcons are done at wide receiver. They can't possibly be done at wide receiver. And so it was like Van Jefferson, Cory Davis, of course, Hunter Renfrow. I think Tyler Boyd was another name that I threw out there as guys that could be shopped, and then, we kind of honed in on Cory Davis over the ensuing months. But like Van Jefferson's always kind of been on the back burner. And then given how the season went for the Rams, it opened up this possibility just because Puka Nacua suddenly became the world's greatest wide receiver. And it was just like, because this year, and really the last 2 years, were supposed to be Van Jefferson's sort of breakout years. And last year, injuries derailed his season as well as the entire Rams organization season. And that didn't really come to fruition. And then this year, with Cooper Kupp being hurt to start the season, everybody was like, Van Jefferson's going to be the guy. And then Puka Nacua was the guy. And then Tutu Atwell suddenly started playing really well. And then Cooper Kupp comes back. And now the Rams are like, yeah, we don't really need Van Jefferson anymore. And I think it makes a lot of sense. He fits what the Falcons want. He's kind of a versatile receiver. He can play, inside, outside, slot, outside receiver. But really, I think that the asset that he brings that really stands out is the speed, right? Like, he's not Tyreek Hill in terms of how fast he is, but, he ran a legit 4.39. And every now and then, if you've watched the Rams over the last couple of seasons, you will see him running a deep post and running past the safety and running past the corner. And then Matt Stafford just heaves up, a 50-yard bomb to him. Sometimes he catches it, sometimes he doesn't. But like that type of ability is something that has been sorely lacking on this team. The only player that really had that type of ability is Scotty Miller, and the Falcons are like, no, we're not going to ask Scotty Miller to run any deep routes at all this entire season. So It's like, I mean, I get it to a certain extent, but having that type of player in the offense, because that's been kind of some of the things that the Falcons have struggled with, right? That we went into the season being like, no one could stop our running game. And we just kind of believed that no one would ever stop our running game. And, through the first 2 weeks, it kind of looked like no one was going to stop our running game. Then Detroit happened. And the last couple of weeks, the run game hasn't really been getting going. And teams have basically been able to stop the run game and basically saying, hey, Desmond Ritter, can you beat us? And 2 out of those games, he couldn't. And this past week, he did. But one of the ways that you can force teams to stop playing you that way is by having that vertical stretch receiver, and Van Jefferson can be that. So that's why I say, like, he can be a contributor, but it probably won't be a guy that's, catching more than like 2 passes, but it could be like 2 passes for like 50 yards or something like that. And that's going to be really valuable to this specific offense, given how they want to play. So I'm a fan of this move. I like the fact that the Falcons kind of opened up their offense a little bit last week, more than they did, playing more 3 wide receiver sets. We saw more of Kadero Hodge than we saw of Mac Hollins last week. We saw more of Scotty Miller getting involved in the offense. And it feels like this Van Jefferson move is moving further in that direction, because I just think, I know Arthur Smith will never abandon the fullback. He'll never abandon the tight end position. And certainly I think Keith Smith does not deserve to be abandoned based off how well he's played this year. Jonnu Smith's been great. Kyle Pitts was great on Sunday, and I'm not suggesting we should abandon Kyle Pitts, because he is the unicorn. Michael Pruitt, I'm a little iffier on. He's not my guy, Parker Hesse, unfortunately. But Pruitt did his thing on Sunday, so I can't complain too loudly this week. But I do think trying to diversify the offense a little bit and spread teams out a little bit more and adding more speed is going to only benefit this team in the long run. So I like this move. It does feel like the Falcons are headed in the quote unquote right direction.
Yeah, I think that was just one thing you noticed was that while this team has a ton of physicality and a lot of big body receivers, and we knew that was the case, they weren't really willing to play Scotty Miller for whatever reason. And Kyle Pitts is it's become clear that he's just not 100% yet. He's just not able to open up and be that over the top threat that we were hoping for this early in the season. And he's starting to get more comfortable, clearly. Like this week, I think was a big step forward, but he still wasn't able to hit that speed. And I think the idea going in was that Kyle Pitts was going to be the deep threat that we saw him be in his first 2 seasons. And just this year, he wasn't quite ready yet. And for whatever reason, Scotty Miller's not the guy. So they're looking to Van Jefferson, who definitely looks a lot more like the guy they want to play out there. You know, he's over 6'1". I think he's like 6'1.5", over 200 pounds. Looks a lot like the receivers they want to play in terms of size. So maybe that will lead to him getting more snaps. I don't think PFF has thought he's been a particularly good run blocker, but we'll see. But Adnan, I'm curious what you think about Van Jefferson coming in. Do you think he's got a potential role in this receiving core? Or is this more just insurance for some of the other guys?
I mean, this is one of those low risk type moves because the details of the trade were basically you're swapping a 6th for a 7th and you're taking Van Jefferson. Hopefully it turns out better than the Bryan Edwards experiment, which ended up just being what was it, a burned 5th round pick for nothing. But I think we will see Van Jefferson in some 3 wide receiver sets out there. Along with Matt Collins and Drake London. He is fast. He is, as Aaron mentioned, a guy where you can sort of, spread them out and pound it up the middle. But Van Jefferson is one of those guys where he's fast, as is Scotty Miller, but Van Jefferson's a lot bigger. And, he's one of those more big-bodied wide receiver that Arthur Smith seems to prefer. And I mean, Scotty Miller, I have no idea what's going on with the Scotty Miller experiment. I saw they gave him a couple of end arounds this past game, and that's basically been all I've seen from Scotty Miller this season. But I do think that Van Jefferson can sort of give him a bit of a run for his money for those 3 wide receiver sets in the slot. He's big enough to play on the outside as well, so there is a little bit of versatility if one of your wide receivers does have to go down with an injury. I think Van Jefferson is someone who he can step in and fill that void temporarily. I mean, he's someone where, let's be honest, he had an 800-yard season in 2021. It's not now, but it's fairly recent. He's not very old. He's only 27 years old. Like Van Jefferson has some legit experience of being, a very involved wide receiver. He played in that very, very pass happy offense of the Rams under Sean McVay. And I think at the end of the day, even if this doesn't work out, even if Van Jefferson goes the way of Bryan Edwards, you haven't really lost anything. You went back, a few draft spots on late day 3 when we'll probably be, asking the Falcons to trade that pick preemptively anyway, so that we don't have to stay on the draft show for the entire 6 hours. So I mean, it's a low risk, sort of moderate reward.
High upside move for us, yeah.
Yeah, you add in another weapon, and I get it from the Rams' perspective because this is the last year of Van Jefferson's contract. They weren't going to bring him back. The other guys on the wide receiver hierarchy sort of jumped him. And, this is Van Jefferson now has a chance at sort of a fresh start here in Atlanta where, Atlanta will definitely be able to use his speed if Arthur Smith dials it up.
They want to.
And if the pass blocking can sort of stay upright and, give some time for those long developing routes to develop.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Certainly, I like adding a little bit more speed because the Falcons Kyle Pitts, when he's healthy, is a great separator. There's no doubting that, and it seems like Jonnu Smith is really emerging as that guy, as that like short yards after catch separation tight end in sort of Kyle Pitts as he's recovering. Drake London, not necessarily a guy that ever creates a ton of separation, just really savvy. So if they're not going to use Scotty Miller, getting another option out there who can separate both with route running and deep speed, I think that's only going to be a good thing for the offense and will help diversify things a little bit more for the looks that they run. And hopefully we'll be able to clear out some stuff more effectively, because if you guys haven't watched, there was a new quarterback school dropped today that went into Desmond Ritter's good game. And, it was nice to see Ritter making some better decisions. And, I think that there was a lot of good stuff brought up on that video. And also the critical one the week before also brought up a lot of good stuff about, like, the Falcons have all these big bodies out there, but some of these clear out routes that they're running to clear up space, they're not getting a lot of space on these routes because a lot of these receivers aren't exactly burners. So they're running this clear out route, and it looks like they're running a route to the same place because of the speed people are running routes. So maybe getting some more guys in there that can create a little more separation, get a little more distance, can't hurt. And I also think it's underrated that, look, if they need someone to come in and play, right now, if there's an injury, it's Kadero Hodge basically or Scotty Miller that have to be inserted as a starter. Maybe now that can be Van Jefferson, and you feel a little bit better about him stepping into a role, because he's shown that he can carry the load as a receiver that catches at least a few passes a game regularly, given his 2021 season with Los Angeles, and hoping for the best there. And we'll see. Again, like both of you guys mentioned, it's a very low risk, low cost move. So if he's just a good depth receiver for you, then that's fine. It's not like you really lost a lot. And if he's more than that, then you look like a genius. So it's all good. I think there's not really any reason not to make this move, especially since it sounds like the Rams were inclined to work with the Falcons, which is always nice to see that, teams can just do a little move like this that helps both sides. And, it's nice. It seems very cordial. It's a very, handshake business relationship between two franchises. It's not all contentious or spicy or something. And I did like the shade that Arthur Smith threw at apparently some teams that are, quote, comical to work with on the trade market. So I want to know, I wish I knew who he was subtweeting with that comment, but
I always feel like he's talking about the Jets.
I mean, yeah. You think it's hashtag Cory Davis watch? You think that was
he said something this summer about the joint practices, and he made a snide comment about how some people run their joint practices, and I was like, are you talking about the Jets again? Like, do you just hate the Jets? And so anytime he says something about how other organizations run their thing, I just always assume he's talking about the Jets.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me given what we know about that organization. But yeah, that would be funny if it was the Jets. I did like the little shade he threw there. Before we move on to some other stuff here, let me get to a donation from Vil Vats with the $5. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. He says, at what point this season do you think the offense will be firing on all cylinders? The Texans game was encouraging, but something doesn't seem to be clicking. What do you think is the cause of this? Is it the offensive line, quarterback, wide receivers, all three, whatever? Yeah, I mean, I think it is a multifaceted issue over the last several weeks. I would hope that things are settled by November. Like, I think you kind of have to know who you are by November, or you're probably never going to find out, or you're going to spiral one way or another. But yeah, I'm curious. I mean, it does take time for some things to come together, particularly when you have a new quarterback in there. But yeah, I would say probably by November we'll have an idea of, is this going to be just very inconsistent, or are they going to start to have some sort of something build here that we could be proud of or not proud of? I don't know. We'll see. But curious what you guys think. When would you expect to see, or at least sort of have either have the offense firing or not? When do you sort of expect to know about that?
I've kind of been thinking like after the bye week, so basically late November, Thanksgiving time. I figure we'll still be on this roller coaster for a couple more weeks. We got some road games coming up, so I still feel those are still a little shaky at this point in time. And my hope is that with some of the road games that they have down the stretch, they'll be able to take care of business, and that will be them firing on all cylinders, being that well-oiled machine, all the idioms, and that will be when they make their playoff push. So that's my expectation. But I would of course love to see a well-oiled machine in October at this point. But November seems, Thanksgiving seems sort of the timeline I have in my head.
Yeah, seems about right. What do you think, Adnan? Yeah, go ahead.
November 5th.
November 5th, exactly.
November 5th.
Yeah, well,
On the
no.
day of November 5th. They face the
Okay.
Vikings on November 5th, and that defense is god awful. They face the Cardinals after that. That defense is god awful. And then, they go into their bye week. So, I think sort of with this offense specifically, I think who you play will matter a lot. And I think these next 2 weeks after the Commanders game are going to be two defenses which will give them a lot of problems because they're two defenses which sort of play the run very well, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, I've mentioned it over and over again, they're coming off of a bye week. The Falcons will be coming off of probably a very emotional divisional game against a Buccaneers team who they may be facing for first place on October 22nd. So, that's going to be a scheduling disadvantage for them right there. But I don't think that this offense is really going to sort of, hit the ground running against these two teams. But I think there's definitely an opportunity when it comes to that Vikings game. And I think the Vikings, I think I saw they blitz more than anyone in the NFL. It's kind of a predictable play calling, and I'm hoping Arthur Smith is able to find some things to negate that a little bit, get some quick throws out there, not very full 4 or 5 second dropbacks where you're just waiting and waiting like we've seen here and there in the first 4 weeks before this past game. But the Vikings present a very, very valuable opportunity as sort of a get-right defense for any offense in the NFL, and I think that's where momentum will start to build, that game and the Cardinals. Even though the Cardinals game is on the road, that's one of those games where, James Conner may or may not be in that game. Justin Jefferson's going to miss that Vikings game. I know those guys are on the offensive side of the ball, and we're talking about the Falcons offense, but those two games will be a very good opportunity for the Falcons to sort of go into the bye week figuring some things out, and to go into the bye week with some momentum on their side, with a big game against the New Orleans Saints on the other side of that bye.
Yeah, I definitely think they need to be playing better, like more consistently by then, or we're probably just looking at a extremely inconsistent offense. Which maybe that is the case, but I don't think we know yet. And I know people are just, I understand it. It's like a human nature thing that you just want answers. Like you just want to know because uncertainty is uncomfortable. Totally understand that. But I think we're still a ways away from really knowing what this team is going to be like this year. The one thing I think we do know now after 5 games, and I want to get your take on this too, Aaron, because I think last time we talked, was it week 2 or week 3 that we had you on last? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember.
Sometime. We have you on a lot, so it all blends together. But I think it was like after the Panthers game. And like we were like, oh, the defense played well, but like it was the Panthers. They look like a disaster. Now it's been a lot longer. We've seen this defense actually be consistently good and basically better than my wildest dreams certainly coming into the season. I'm curious how you feel now seeing 5 games of this defense. Do you think this is actually a legit unit? It's not just a flash in the pan after a couple of weaker opponents to start the season.
Yeah, I think it's legit in the sense of I think they can be counted on to play well and play winning football and put this team in a position to win each and every game. And it goes back to the question we just talked about: will the offense, take advantage of those opportunities? Sometimes they have, sometimes they haven't. And so like I feel like that side of the ball on defense has consistently shown up this year. So I expect them to continue to consistently show up. And I think the one thing that would potentially be their Achilles heel would be a extremely high-powered offense with a really good quarterback, because the one issue that this team has not really been able to do defensively is get consistent pressure on the quarterback, right? Especially when they only rely on rushing 4. A lot of their pressure tends to come from, dialing up pressure, and they've been effective doing that. But I don't know if you could do that against a high-level quarterback. But then, due to Aaron Rodgers being off the schedule, you've already dealt with Trevor Lawrence and Jared Goff, who are arguably the next two best quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, I guess, is number 4 on that list, maybe, but he's going to be without Justin Jefferson, and I don't know if Kirk Cousins without Justin Jefferson. And then, CJ Stroud, kind of surprisingly, I guess to a lot of folks, it would probably round out the top 5 in terms of top quarterbacks, although, I wouldn't sleep on Josh Dobbs at home. So we'll see how that
Baker
goes.
Mayfield, Derek Carr, the slander.
Yeah, so like I feel like the one thing, like there is no Joe Burrow on this schedule like we saw last year with Cincinnati, where it was just like there's really nothing the Falcons can do to stop that type of offense, and I don't think they have any of those teams. So I feel pretty good about how kind of the schedule is set up, unless suddenly Ryan Tannehill takes a big turn. Maybe Anthony Richardson becomes a real big problem by the end of the season. Maybe Justin
weeks.
Yeah, maybe Justin Fields has figured it out by the
Fields
end of the
Assance.
season. But but like sitting here right now, I feel like you feel pretty confident that this defense, there's not going to be any. Like, I honestly think Sam Howell and the Commanders are probably going to be the toughest offense that they face, probably between now and the bye week.
Yeah.
And so if they can take care of business this week, then I see no reason why I shouldn't expect them to take care of business in perpetuity. So I feel really good about this defense. The one concern I think is the pass rush, but right now I'm just kind of at a point where it's like maybe it'll, this is the get right game that you need going up against Washington, because everybody gets like 5 sacks against the team.
Right. So,
I'll be much more concerned if the Falcons come away with only like 2 or 3 sacks in this game. And I'm like, all right, what's going on, guys? But, so I feel real good about the defense at this point. And I feel like, if they can get through this week and again, put another good game on film, then it's going to be hard to question this defense moving forward, is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah. Kind of been waiting for the back to earth moment for this defense, and it's never come. I feel like they're just playing better. It has been weird that they are like 4th in the NFL in pressure rate, but like to have 5 sacks. They're like one of the only. I think they're the team in the top 10 of pressure rate with by far the fewest sacks. I think only 2 other teams have less than 10 in the top 10 of pressure rate, and they have they had like 7 and 9. So like, and they were the 9th and 10th teams also. So like, something weird's going on with this. They're getting pressure but not getting sacks. Is it the personnel? Is it an aberration? I think this week is the week we find out if like they can get sacks, because Sam Howell will take sacks. That's sort of his weakness. Like he thinks he's a hero and has been a hero several times, but also he takes sacks. It's just kind of what he does. So now maybe he can improve from that. Maybe he gets better. But this is certainly a situation where you feel like you should be able to at least get on the board in the sack department, which they haven't done, I think, for 2 weeks now. So it would be nice to get some sacks here. But yeah, on that note, Adnan, what do you think about this defense going into staying in Atlanta, but going up against the Commanders?
You can't help but feel confident about this defense, given what you've seen so far. I think it's fair, outside of the sack department, I think it's fair to say that they have sort of exceeded our expectations in the early going. Like they won that game against the Texans. They did everything possible to try and put you in position to win those games against the Jaguars and against the Lions. They were a little bit shaky against the Packers, but they completely buckled down and locked it down in the fourth quarter, once again giving the offense that chance to make their comeback. And this goes back to exactly what I was saying regarding the offense as well. The schedule helps. Like, the schedule helps out a lot, because I think Aaron's right that arguably Sam Howell is the best quarterback you'll face until the bye week, depending on what you think of Baker Mayfield, because Baker looks like he's having a bit of a resilient season this year. I'm a big Kirk Cousins guy in general, but yeah, it's never a small thing to lose the best wide receiver in the NFL and to not be able to have him on the field, because no disrespect to KJ Osborne, but I don't think he's Justin Jefferson, and they'll be asking him to fill the shoes of that X wide receiver role. So you have an opportunity here. the Buccaneers, that's been more of a frisky offense than what you've expected. But maybe Mike Evans is out for that game. He's nursing that hamstring injury. He has a history of those. And if he's out or if he's limited, then that offense isn't the same offense, as they are with Mike Evans fully healthy. The Tennessee Titans, they're riding on the back of an aging Derrick Henry who's sort of showing his age right now. I mean, Derrick Henry looks more ineffective now than he has in a number of years, and I think that's natural given how many carries he's taken in his NFL career and in his football playing life. The Commanders' offensive line has been an absolute disaster so far this season, and hopefully you are able to pressure and to get Sam Howell onto the ground. The Cardinals' offense is actually really frisky. Like the Cardinals,
they're weirdly spicy. Yeah,
that's why I said don't sleep on Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I'm not sleeping on the Like I've been saying like all season, like the Cardinals may have something cooking out there. I really like Hollywood Brown. I really like James Conner. I think he will be back by then because that's more than 4 weeks from now. I don't think this injury is gonna. I think he'll be fully healthy from that injury. Josh Dobbs looks pretty good. Yeah. Like he genuinely looks pretty good, and there's an outside chance that maybe Kyler Murray's even healthy for that game. But I mean, oddly enough, like that Cardinals team, looking at the schedule, like that Cardinals offense may scare me more than any other offense. Up until the bye.
Yeah.
I would have thought at the beginning of the season. Like that offensive line looks pretty good too. Like it looks a lot better than what was expected. But I mean, this schedule is just giving this team so many opportunity because this was the easiest schedule on paper going into the season. And I mean, the fact that you don't face a star quarterback at all season is it's something that I really hope this team takes full advantage of. And so far they have. So far the defense has, and so far I don't really have any complaints other than, let's get the quarterback on the ground a little more. But if the pressure rate stays high, I think that'll come. I think that'll sort of regress to the mean as it always does.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I've been impressed with the defense. I'm excited to see where this goes. And then on the offensive side, and we got some donations to get here in a second too. I'll get to those folks. Going up against the Commanders, I think this is like the first time now in a few weeks where we're going up against a run defense that has actually been pretty bad. So I do wonder, Aaron, do you think this is the week that we see the run game sort of come back into prominence here against this Commanders defense, which, let's see, 4.8 yards per carry and over 133 rushing yards per game. Not great numbers, Aaron, for the Washington Commanders against the ground game.
It should be. One of the trends I noticed with Washington, they've faced a lot of mobile quarterbacks, and that has contributed to some of their struggles because I don't think they necessarily have the speed on the perimeter on defense and at the linebacker position to really handle that sort of thing. So I do wonder if the Falcons lean a little bit more on Desmond Ritter's running this week to try to take advantage of that. So like I do feel like this is a game where the Falcons can, get back to running the football, but you do wonder a little bit with some of the question marks up front with, what's Caleb McGarry's status going to be, if Storm Norton can sort of pick up the slack there. Jonathan Allen has routinely dominated whoever we've put at left guard the last couple of seasons in this matchup. And, Matthew Bergeron's had his moments as a rookie, but like, I feel like if the Jonathan Allen that we come to see the last couple of years shows up, like it's going to be another rough outing for him, like it was when he faced Kenny Clark in week 2. So those are some of the questions I have, but I do feel like the run game, I go into every game expecting the run game to be effective. And then when it's not, it's like, I don't know what happened,
what
like
is going on?
That sort of things. Yeah. So I feel like Washington does have the opportunity to be that sort of get right game for them.
Yeah, I think so too. But Adnan, I'm curious your thoughts there too. Do you think the Falcons get it going? Should we, should we feed Bijan gets fed? Does he get another 100-yard game? What do you think about the offense going up against that one?
Yeah,
I
think
literally I tweeted that he fumbled the very next snap. That was not cool, Bijan. That was extremely uncool. But other than that, yes, feed Bijan. So.
But I just think that's just the nature of this offense. No matter who you're facing, they're gonna be run first. Like this, I don't think that this is a team which is good enough in the passing attack to where you can sort of, switch it out to where, all right, like this game we're going to be more pass first, this game we're going to be more run first. And I know a lot of teams have their own identity and lean on their own identity, but I think Atlanta leans on its own identity more than any other team does. In the end, well, probably maybe with exception of the Chiefs who have, Pat Mahomes and, those guys who are just like air raiding with Travis Kelce, and Mahomes is making every single wide receiver around him look competent, no matter, how good or bad they are. But Atlanta really, really likes to run the ball. And I think I don't care even if you had the front seven of the 1985 Chicago Bears out there, the Falcons will try to establish a run first and foremost. And then, depending on what the defense does, then there's going to be some adjustments made on the offense. Like, for example, so with the Texans, who were really sort of selling out to stop the run, and who did. They stopped the run successfully. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they held Atlanta's run game to 2.7 yards per carry on 36 rushing attempts. Like that's no small feat, but we saw a lot of stack boxes. We saw a lot of run blitzes. They dared Desmond Ritter to beat them, and I think that's going to be something that we see in this game, and I think that's going to be something we see moving forward to the point until Ritter does it consistently enough to the point where other teams sort of stop selling out to stop the run. But even then, I think they'll be more erring on the side of stopping the run, because I don't think that this passing attack, is going to be better than this rushing attack at any point this season. And basically, this is just my long-winded way of saying that, yeah, I think the Falcons are going to go into this game, and every single game by default, leaning on the run, leaning on Bijan Robinson, leaning on Tyler Algier. And I think what Washington does in trying to halt that run game, they're going to give Desmond Ritter an opportunity to beat them. And I think this week he will. I think there's going to be some defenses where he's not going to be able to. But, Washington this week, especially looking the way of a cornerback like an Emmanuel Forbes, who's just gotten cooked game after game this season. Benjamin St-Juste is solid. Kendall Fuller is very good, but he had a very bad performance last week. But, the Washington secondary looks vulnerable. And I think this will be a game where you can sort of make them pay for selling out to stop the run. But that's not to say that the Falcons are going to go out there and start air raiding it in the beginning of the game. I think they're going to go out there and they're always going to try to establish the run. And then whatever happens afterwards will be dictated and predicated on what the defense decides to do in how they decide to attack the Atlanta Falcons offense, who are going to be attacking them with runs.
Yeah. I'm interested to see, how they match up here. I mean, we've seen basically Emmanuel Forbes just get annihilated out there. So, the Falcons obviously are going to try to go after him in the passing game, but the secret to really good run defense, and I think a lot of folks don't realize it, is like everybody has to tackle. Like you have to get good tackling from the defensive line, the linebackers, the safeties, but also the corners. And like the Commanders do have two pretty good run defending corners in Kendall Fuller and Benjamin St-Juste, but Emmanuel Forbes has been a complete liability in that regard. And that unfortunately their starting linebacker Cody Barton has also just been really bad tackling. So that's where you're going to see this team target. They still have a good defensive line, but if you're trotting out a guy like Emmanuel Forbes on the outside and your linebackers aren't tackling well, then it's you're going to get that defensive line blocked up, and if that run gets past the first level, then you're going to have big problems, which unfortunately that's what sort of Bijan's specialty is, and I think they're going to have more success against this unit than they did against the Texans last week. So we'll see how that goes, but I do think they've got a chance certainly to make something happen there successfully. So we'll see how that goes. Before we wrap up here, guys, let me get to these donations. We got Jason Gaines with the $2. Thank you, Jason. He says, current Giants offensive lineman Jalen Mayfield had to enter the game this week against Miami. That's true. And did not perform well. PFF literally gave him a 0 in pass blocking. I didn't even think that was I thought that was impossible. It's not. He says, I think he might need to consider his secondary career of working for the Mayfield Dairy Company. Yeah, that's a good deep cut. I never put that joke together until now, but yeah, I mean, I was like, oh man, Jalen Mayfield, he's getting a chance to play, and then yeah, it did not go well for him. So that unfortunately, Mayfield continuing to struggle even in a new situation. So we met Jalen Mayfield's dad, and he was very nice. So I'm not going to slander Jalen Mayfield. He's no longer a Falcon, so he's free of slander for me now.
To be fair to Jalen Mayfield, it has not gone well for any Giants offensive line this season. So
that's true.
He's fitting in nicely with his new team. That's what.
Yes, he's embraced the culture over there in the New York Giants offensive line room. But yeah, unfortunately, big struggles there for Jalen Mayfield. We got Moonstar with the $5. Says, if the Falcons lose to Arizona, I will never forgive them for losing to Josh Dobbs, who looks like Little Bill. So thank you, Moonstar, for that. That's I don't understand that reference. Maybe I should. But some of these, I feel like I'm an old man now. I'm not getting any of these references. So I just turned 30, so I already can't understand the TikToks. It's only a matter of time. But we got the George Costanza.
It's like that Simpsons. It's like that Simpsons scene where Grandpa Simpson is talking to Homer, and he's like, "I used to know what it was, and then they changed what it was, and then I didn't." And that's going to be you one day.
Yeah, that's going to be yes. Am I out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong. Yep. Oh God, it's coming. I can feel it. All right, we got George Costanza at the $3. Says, I feel good about this defense. That's something I never thought I'd hear from a Falcons analyst. Although at least we didn't draft Evan Neal. I was pounding the table for him, and now I'm glad the Falcons don't listen to my dumbass. Yeah, I mean,
I think he had a chance to draft Evan Neal. I think he went.
No, he went before. He did, but he was definitely someone we were considering. I remember. I didn't think he would fall. Yeah.
Calling out the fans. It's bad when you as a football player are calling out like the fans, and then you're putting on performances the way that Evan Neal is like putting on. Like you have to be
bad
good.
Luck.
You have to
Yeah,
be
bad
good
luck.
if you're gonna call out the fans.
Yeah, you ain't good enough to be an asshole. So yeah. can't be doing that.
If Travis Kelce called out the Chiefs fans or Pat Mahomes called out the Chiefs for whatever reason, then it's like, all right, you're going out there and you're balling. It's like, But if you're calling out the fans and you're playing like dog shit, it's like what are we doing here? Like you have to have some perspective here.
Yeah, you do. So we got one more from Ray Moon with the $5. I'm late, but did we touch on how bad the offensive line play was on non-trickery plays? No, we didn't. I did want to actually touch on Storm Norton, Toledo legend Storm Norton, by the way.
The eye of the storm.
I'm just saying, like, I was like, oh, I think he might be a solid swing tackle, and Aaron was like, oh, really? You think So
that's actually why he invited you onto the show.
I know.
I've been waiting. Yep, I've been lulling you into a false sense of security for the last 50 minutes just so I could drop this bomb on you. So, So, what do you think now, Aaron?
He definitely exceeded my expectations, but we'll see if he can do that 2 weeks in a row. That's going to be the question.
No,
But,
I'm not calling for McGarry to get benched for Storm, by the way. But yeah,
it's like post game, like the O line with Storm Norton, not Caleb McGarry's like taking a group picture together, and it's like Caleb's like, what the fuck, guys? Like
it's just weird because they both have the long like blonde hair or whatever, and it's just like, aren't you guys the same guy? Like, what's going on here?
What? Who was that?
Like,
was that Caleb?
I thought that was Caleb. I thought that was you. It's the Storm. I didn't realize
he just sort of wandered into the frame, like, "Hey, what's up?" Yep. Yeah, but I mean, good for him. He definitely had a great game. Especially coming in cold like that, played more than half the snaps, and looked good. We've seen a lot of bad from Storm Norton as a pass blocker, a lot of good as a run blocker from his history. But yeah, I mean, I think at this stage, I mean, maybe he has improved. He's had some time, outside of Los Angeles. He's had some time to continue working on his technique. Offensive line is one of those positions where sometimes it does take a long time. Like it's a slow build. Sometimes guys find it late in their career and end up becoming, solid players. So I wouldn't rule it out for him. He was always a guy that I think had great developmental potential due to his size and athletic ability, but very raw sort of technique wise, and maybe he is putting it together. Good for him. But yeah, I mean, I think people are getting a little bit weird about like, oh, we need to bench Caleb McGarry because 40 good snaps from Storm. Like, maybe let's calm down a little bit. Like, I'm pushing the Toledo legend more than most, and I think we probably need to relax.
Look, if he shuts down Montez Sweat, then I think we can have a conversation
Go for
about
it.
benching Caleb McGarry. But
yeah.
Until that happens, I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, we need to relax on that take just a little bit, but shout out to Toledo legend Storm Norton. Now the Falcons coincidentally have two of the players I actually watched live in person when I was briefly at University of Toledo for like 3 years. Logan Woodside and Storm Norton were both there for that. I saw a game in the box seats in Toledo Stadium that they were both playing in. So it's just weird that it's only happened 2 times, but it's weird that it's happened at all. These 2 random Toledo players ended up in Atlanta, so this is kind of a cool coincidence. So shout out to those guys.
Who was the receiver that they had? That really good receiver.
Oh yeah. What was his name? I know who you're talking about.
Eric Page?
Maybe. I'm
I don't know.
Like, I'm going to look it up, but yeah. But yes, I know I know exactly who you're talking about. Who was that? Like their big time receiver that year? That I can't remember where he went. I don't think it worked out for him in the NFL, but
no.
Yeah, it did not. But he was good in college. I mean, hell of a season there. But yeah, guys. Okay, we got George one more. Squeaked it in here. This is for you, Adnan. He says, Adnan, you seem to be in good spirits despite the Elder Express's showing tonight. We're not dead yet. We got Strider coming on Friday. Yeah. Is there any hope for the Braves, Adnan? What do you think?
There's some hope. The hope is because you'll have the advantage in the pitching matchup the next 2 days. So that's where the hope comes in, because pitching is what matters. It's like defense in the other sports. That's the most important thing, and you'll have an advantage with the pitcher tomorrow and possibly in Game 5 with Max Fried. The only issue is, man, these guys fucking own us. Like, the Phillies are owning this team right now, and you have to mentally overcome that, especially in Philadelphia. So, sometimes it doesn't even matter how good you are. If you're just mentally defeated, then it won't matter. But hopefully, I mean, I have some hope. I have some hope that they'll be able to turn it around. But yeah, if they lose tomorrow, it'll be a whole another year of just taking shit from Philly fans and fucking hate Philadelphia fans. So that sucks.
Yeah, Mad Tom, Deontay Johnson. I think that was the receiver. I think you're right about that.
Okay.
Yeah, because Logan Woodside was 2018, and then Deontay Johnson was 2019. So yeah, I think that's correct. But yeah, Deontay Johnson actually did have a decent NFL career. Started hot, maybe a little bit cooler the last couple of years, but
until Matt Canada showed up.
Man, Canada's cold. He's cooling off that offense. That's for sure.
This season. And I'm not just saying that as someone who has Deontay Johnson in my main fantasy league and someone who really needs him to play well. But you know what? I'm saw some stuff from Deontay in the preseason. I saw some stuff in week 1 before the injury. I think Deontay will have a nice bounce back after this IR stint. So, God, I hope he has a nice bounce back. I really need him.
You need that? Yeah.
You
have some ulterior motives? Yeah.
I already lost Nick Chubb. I lost James Conner.
It's been a rough fantasy season for me.
It's been rough. I really need Deontay Johnson to come through for me.
When Justin Jefferson went down, I was like, well, okay, I'm done with fantasy this year.
Okay, well, I lost. Yeah.
I took him number 1 in the draft I was in.
Yep.
Like, I'm gonna ride him to the end. I'm
already
struggling in that league. It's
Yeah.
done. It's done.
Yeah, that's brutal. Yeah. No, I mean, I can't relate. I think all my teams have winning records and 3 of them are undefeated. So
Okay,
can't relate. Yeah, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, can't relate, guys. My dynasty league, both of my running backs were hurt, but I'm still 3-2, so I can't complain too much. Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, that combo was lethal in week 1. Not less lethal since week 1, but we're skating by. I just got to weather the storm. So that's what good teams do. They just got to get through. Got to get through the rough patch. I'm confident you guys, can do the same. But yeah, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. We got a chance this week to get to 4-2, and maybe tie for the lead in the NFC South. So, hey, I think there's a decent chance. If the Falcons win, I think they'll probably be tied for the lead in the NFC South this week. I have a hard time seeing the Bucs beat the Lions, but it could happen.
If the Falcons win and the Bucs lose, the Falcons are ahead of them.
Yeah, because they'll be 3-2. But it's the Saints. Like if the Saints win too, then they'll both be 4-2, I believe. So.
Yeah, but but the Falcons will have the tiebreaker over the Saints because of division record so far. So they'll temporarily still be in first, going into that game against that game against the Bucs is suddenly a lot more consequential than we thought it would be. Shout out to the Bucs. They've looked very good. They're 3-1, and they're humming along over there. Again, for the record, I did pick that as a loss in July, so I hope.
Hope I'm wrong about that. Yeah, I did. I expected them to split with the Bucs, so if they could win 2 against the Bucs, that would be nice. But I guess we'll see. Guys, thanks again. The show, of course, brought to you by BetOnline. Check out betonline.ag for your betting needs. Before we take off, I want to thank, of course, Aaron Freeman. You can find him temporarily at Locked On Falcons. I think that's the at for. Is that what you're low key using, Aaron, at this point?
Pretty much.
Okay, gotcha. And still follow at Falc fans.
You're circumventing Twitter rules. I'm gonna get Elon Musk.
Well,
that's a professional account. Yeah,
was unsuspended before the Falc fan suspension, so it's not breaking any rules if you already had a well-established account. Now, if you create a secondary account after you've been suspended, that's where things go wrong. I've become an expert on Twitter rules.
Aaron, it sounds like you know a lot about Twitter suspension right now.
Very knowledgeable. Well, at least we have that bank of information now in our back pocket. Aaron Freeman really going above and beyond in his investigative reporting on the dark and seedy underbelly of Twitter's suspension policies, which we'll just all be thankful that, we're not having to deal with them. But we appreciate Aaron's time, obviously. Thanks, man, for coming on. Anything you'd like to plug in the meantime?
No, I just, since I got suspended for saying violent things, I'll just say, Elon, don't, check to see before you turn on your car. Those old mob movies and stuff.
The horse head in the bed, that sort of thing.
Yeah, just, violence. You haven't seen violence yet, my friend. Based off of what
the violent rhetoric.
Elon Musk is a viewer of the
show.
I saw him chatting here once. Yeah,
he's one of the 109 people viewing us right now.
Yes, I would. Yeah, Elon. Where's Elon's donations? If Elon's watching, he better throw us a $5. Throw me a 5 spot, Elon. Come on, I know you got it.
Maybe I wouldn't have a grainy camera if Elon.
Yeah, if Elon was pulling his weight, geez, making George do everything. We got Elon Musk in here, but yeah, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Also, thanks for my co-host Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, anything you're working on you'd like to plug?
I think Cory's right. Aaron, you're gonna end up on an FBI watch list, not just you're not just
gonna be suspended from life here pretty soon, aka jail. Yeah, but
my weekly articles, fantasy sudden dud, or sorry, what if we win or lose, as well as series history. I haven't started on either of those. It's already Wednesday, so I really need to start on. Right
now, this is that outside accountability. You're saying it now. The people will be expecting it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I haven't. Even though I just barely got it in at the buzzer last week, I haven't. I've been very consistent, unlike our quarterback.
Oh, got him.
Well,
nice job.
Just throw a little jab in there.
Yeah, there you go.
For the brand,
of course.
for the narrative that Kevin seems to be pushing.
Yes, I'm just pushing this narrative relentlessly.
Yeah. Also, I would like to make a plea to the Atlanta Falcons to not embarrass themselves with Matt Ryan calling the game this week. So
please, yes.
Matt Ryan will be on the call at CBS. So let's put on a good showing for the hopefully future Hall of Famer and greatest Atlanta Falcon of all time. Let's go to 4-2, and let's ride that high of being 2 games above 500 again. I really want to get back to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's the hope. We can keep this thing rolling this week, which is the topic of tonight's show. And I think they've got a good chance to keep it rolling against the Commanders. I think we have a pretty good shot to get to 4-2. The Falcons obviously are unbeatable at home, so very confident in this matchup. It's just the road games now. That's the problem. So, at least if you win all your home games, you won't have, I guess you could technically still have a losing record depending on how it shakes
we'll
out.
Be 9-8.
But,
we have 9 home games this year, right?
So we got it in the bag. Yeah, so we got the home games down. We just got to steal an away game or 2. Yeah, we're all good. So. And
the thing, if the division is bad enough, you could have a home playoff game, and then you win that one too.
Yep. Then we just keep it rolling. See how far we can take this thing until we have to play on the road. We'll be good. So. Yeah,
the issue is that you'll only have a winning record every other year in that case. But hey, that's much better than what we've got in the last 5 years. So
I'll take it.
I'll
take it.
Maybe I'll even sign up for that.
There we go. I would take it at this point. So, guys, thanks again for tuning in. Appreciate everyone for hanging out this tonight. Kevin and I at Falcoholic. Kevin, check out the site, falcoholic.com, for all that tremendous written content. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave us that 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. And we'll be back. We'll have a new show coming for you on Friday morning. I'll be doing a game preview for the Commanders game with George Carmi, who we had on last year to preview the Commanders. So looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then, of course, we'll be back for the post game on Sunday. So until then, folks, have a great night. And we will see you next time here on the Falcoholic Live and Dirty Birds and Brews. Until then, folks, have a great night.